What's up, Passion students? Jordan Price here. I'm so excited for you as you dive into pro tips from Proverbs in week 3. I hope you and your family group are doing amazing. Hope you've shown your family group leaders some love this week, told them how awesome they are, because they are amazing and you can't be too grateful for them. They're incredible. So let's jump right in, man. I'm excited to be with you guys. Complete this sentence if you know it. What goes up must come down, right? So there is a law at place right here that when this pen leaves my hand, it's going to fall. Let's just make sure that it's still working. Yep, it is. 100% of the time, gravity is at work. We know that law as the law of gravity. Sir Isaac Newton actually coined that saying that what goes up must come down. But there are a lot of laws in life that you might not feel. You might not see them, but they are actually in place. And one of those laws is the law of destination. And that is direction, not desire, determines our destination. So you might have this idea in your mind that you want to go to Topgolf up in Alpharetta. But if you aren't careful and you put Topgolf off of Howell Mill, you're going to end up going down to the west side. And though you might have ended up at a Topgolf, you're not at the Topgolf in Alpharetta. You're at the Topgolf beside Joe Brim's house. And while it would be a win to go and see Balto, you're not actually at the right Topgolf. And to take it a little bit deeper, you might have a desire to go to the University of Georgia, go Dogs, or you might have a desire to go to Georgia Tech. And but you know, if you're making all C's and D's and F's in your classes, the odds are that you're probably not going to get the grades that you need to get to be able to get into a Georgia Tech or a University of Georgia. Do you see how this law is at play in our everyday lives? So Proverbs 4:25 through 26 says this, and this is going to help us navigate this law of destination. It says, "Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways." You see, every destination requires that we have a specific direction. You need to make sure that where you're headed, you have the right course to get there. You can't just assume that you're going to make it there just because you start headed any direction. I remember one time my wife and I, we were up in North Georgia outside of Young Harris hiking Double Knob. It's a real famous mountain up there. And we make our way up through this wooded area and all the way to the top of this mountain. And then all of a sudden it gets dark and we lose sense of where the path is. And I'm like bushwhacking my way through this. I'm getting destroyed, torn up thorns, and my wife is freaking out. We can just like hear banjos playing in the background and like wild dogs like, oh, like hooting and howling. And we're like, we're gonna die out here. All because we lost the path that we were supposed to be on. Thank God, mountains all go downhill, and that's good news, because if you just stayed downhill, we ended up making our way to a road and we got our GPS back on track and we're able to follow the road back to our cars. But it's not by accident, right? You have to have the right direction in your life if you're going to end up at the right destination. And so we don't always make the right decisions, though, about where we're headed and being on the right path. And why do we make sometimes the wrong choices to be on this path versus clearly we see that this path over here is going to lead to life, is going to lead what we're looking for? Why is that we make those wrong choices? Well, again, going back to my wife a few weeks ago, we were getting ready for bed and she was kind of looking at me and she was like, man, I sure would like to see that six-pack again. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I've only put on 20 pounds since we've gotten married. And it really is true. I do need to hit a diet, but it's really hard because I have this desire for Rocky Road ice cream. And I cannot say no to this desire for this Rocky Road ice cream, even though I know that one bite of it is equal to like 150 calories and I eat the whole half gallon of ice cream. So it's like 5,000 calories in one sitting. Yes, I'm not even ashamed that I can do that. I'm actually proud of myself. But the outcome, the destination does not equal a six-pack. And the direction that I'm headed on is 20 pounds over the weight that I was when we got married. Does that make sense? Do you see how that works out? And so the wrong desire often takes hold of our hearts, moving us in the wrong direction. The wrong desire often leads us to the wrong direction. So what is desire? Desire it's an emotional longing in our heart. And sometimes those things can be good and sometimes those can be bad. Psalms 34:7 says, delight yourself in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. So we see in this context that if we delight ourselves in the Lord, then he gives us good desires. Those good desires are going to lead us on the right path. But it's tricky, right? Jeremiah 17:9 says this, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? I mean, whoa, that's a big deal. And so how do we learn to navigate these desires, right, that are waging for us? Sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. Sometimes the good ones are going to lead us to life and sometimes the bad ones are going to lead us to destruction in our lives. So the challenge is making sure that our desires are coming in line with God's heart for us. So how do we go about doing that? Well, I love what David prays in Psalm 139. He says, search me, O God, and know my heart. He says, test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. So David's praying. He knows that his heart is not always lining up and his desires are not always lining up with God's plan. And the result is that that's leading him on a path that is less than God's best. So first of all, David is saying, God, search my heart. He's praying, God, search me, know me, see if there's anything that is offensive in me and lead me on the right path. The second thing we must do is that we must seek discipline. Ooh, even just saying it, I really don't like to talk about this word, but it's such a big thing when it comes to us finding and staying on the right path. Check this out. Hebrews 12 says this, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. So we see that this principle that if you will discipline yourself, that you're going to find this way of peace. You're going to find the path of life. And it's so essential because sometimes the path of life is narrow and sometimes it's steep and sometimes it's difficult. And discipline is going to be the way that you stay on track, committed to prayer and committed to reading the word and committing to being in consistent community and meeting with your family group and being honest and being vulnerable about where you're at. Those are going to be the practices that keep you on the path that God has for you. So the goal of discipline is that when your desire is weak, it would override that desire and keep you on the right path. I hope that makes sense. So remember, the law of destination. That's what I want you to keep in mind from this talk. The law of destination. Direction, not desire, determines our destination. So ask yourself these questions. Are your directions taking you to the right destination? Are your desires aligned with God's heart? And lastly, is your discipline in place to bring you through the hard times and keep you on the right path? Man, I've loved being with you guys. I hope you'll have an amazing family group. We'll see you around.